I will allow Representative Godfrey to introduce State Representative and Majority Leader Denise Merrill.
You know, thank you, Joe. The founder of our party, Thomas Jefferson, was also a great writer. Declaration of Independence, no question about it. From Danbury's point of view, the letter to the Unitarian Universalist Church that first talked about the separation of church and state. But those of us who are English majors also know he wrote a piece while he was ambassador to France called The Debate Between the Head and the Heart. That is quite famous for someone from the age of reason to actually talk about emotions before the Romantic era was quite innovative. And that's been a debate among people who have dealt with literature and history for a long, long time. Well, I have a candidate who's running for Secretary of the State that happily combines both. Denise Merrill, who I've known for longer than either one of us actually wanted to admit tonight, because we have to talk about our age. I knew her before either of us were in the legislature. At one time, she actually was a consultant to the State Department of Education. And in her entire career now, eight terms, she has certainly been in the forefront of issues revolving around education and higher education. She is the representative whose district includes Storrs, the University of Connecticut's flagship campus. And she is just absolutely brilliant. She has been in the legislature for a very long time. She's worked in education. She chaired the Appropriations Committee for 2 terms. Not an easy task, just crunching numbers and moving things around. And she's currently in her first term as the Majority Leader of the Connecticut House of Representatives. But she also has a heart. Just this morning, we were discussing, in a very civilized way, the continued attack on working class families by the Republican Party and Jody Rell, where it's more important to save money for dead rich people than it is to help out living working families. I'll talk more about all of that later. But I hope that you're going to, and I'm not only endorsing her, I'm working on her campaign directly, working here in Western Connecticut to, you'll be surprised, raise money and help her carry the day, because I think she'll be a tremendous Secretary of the State, and I'll let her talk to you about that. But would you please give a very warm Danbury welcome to Denise Merrill.
My goodness, I don't know if I can live up to all that.
Wherever you would like.
Really far away, that's okay.
Wherever
I have a
you would
pretty
like.
loud voice. I'm used to trying to corral the 114 people in the house. It's kind of like being the mom. You know, you're always trying to get people to cooperate, shall we say. And it's not an easy job. But I'm about to embark on something new and different, and that is running for Secretary of the State. And I'm here tonight to explain that and tell you a little bit about myself, although I see a lot of familiar faces. I've been down in Danbury quite a few times over the years. Lovely to see old friends and make some new ones, hopefully. You know, I think I remember last summer I was at the picnic. I've gone to the famous picnic a number of times. Joe and Bob and others have gotten me down here. And in my 17 years now in the House, and before that doing, as Bob said, education. Actually, I did citizenship education. So running for Secretary of the State is sort of coming home to me. I actually began politics. I probably began politics when I was really young, but I'm a 60s kid, you know, so there was a lot of politics around then. But I started it by basically caring about constitutional rights and issues, and that's what I really still care about. I really am concerned about civil liberties, civil rights for people, and rights for working class families. I mean, I've spent my entire career fighting for those things, and very visibly, in many ways, in many different forums and places. But I wrote a lot about citizenship education. I believe profoundly that people have to continue to understand and live with and work in the system that we have, which is this wonderful constitutional government in the United States. And I have to say we're living in a very difficult time, and I sometimes have fears that we're losing our system. And that's one of the reasons, actually, that I want to do this job. And I've been in the trenches now for quite a while, and I've done a lot of different things with the legislature. Bob mentioned a few of them. I've chaired, you know, a major committee, the Appropriations Committee. I know what it's like to try to make a budget work. I like to think that I spent a lot of time trying to listen to people in towns around the state. I think sometimes up there in Hartford, we do things and we have impacts on people that we don't always understand. But I have fought hard for many issues that concern cities and towns. Just this year, we're fighting hard to save the cities and towns from really disastrous budget cuts that I think would have happened if we hadn't stood there and stood in the way. And I know there's a lot of concern around the state and around the country. I've never seen the electorate so upset. And I know that. I mean, we live it every day. And it's a very difficult situation. Nothing we do is going to be easy in the legislature. And we're trying very hard to solve those questions, but I also believe profoundly we cannot solve those questions on the backs of people who can't afford it. And that's the last thing we should be doing right now. So I just mentioned those things because I'm taking those philosophies with me to the Secretary of State's office. And people say, why now? Why do you want to do this now? And I think it's because I think it is a place I can make a contribution. I can tell you, for the years I have served 8 terms in the Connecticut legislature, and I have never served with a Democratic governor. And that is not good. The Republican governors, while complaining about how things are running and business friendly and all that stuff, have really driven many of the agencies into the ground, in my personal opinion. And I really saw it when I was chairing appropriations. You know, we used to be a state of great creativity in the way, just in the nuts and bolts of government. I'll give you an example. I was working in the Department of Education. This is back in the 80s. We were known for a lot of creative things we were doing in education in the 80s. And over the years, it's really these agencies have atrophied because we've had an executive branch that really doesn't care about the working of government. They're pretty open about that. I mean, they don't believe that government should be trying to solve problems. I think the Secretary of State's office could really be a place where we can make a difference, and especially in certain areas. Obviously, it's all about, elections, making sure elections are running smoothly and all that, and of course, getting more people to vote. But I'm sort of less concerned about that now because we saw last year 220,000 new people registered to vote in this state. Some of them in your town, because I noticed you have a few more delegates than you would have had before. So, obviously it works when there's an inspiration for people to register and vote. It's not like you have to talk them into it when they think they have something to say. And I think that's where the contribution can be made. I think you have to go out there and ask people. And I would pledge to be a person who would go out and ask registrars and town clerks and towns and cities what they think works, and get ideas, and be a forum for things like small businesses. Every business in the state has to register at the Secretary of State's office. There's no reason it couldn't be a place where you could make a difference and have a place, one information point, for example, where all businesses could interact with government. The Secretary of State's office has always done the Blue Book, which is the only place that all information about the state is put together. This has been a real interest of mine, is on information technology. So far the state's not really good at this. We're very bureaucratic. We have try getting a permit for anything. Forget it. It takes years sometimes. And those things can be improved. And I think this is what Democrats really have to do. We have to show not just we're for the little guy and all that stuff. We have to show that we can make government work for people. And I think it's the key to this next election. And I can't wait to see the Democratic governor. I think we're going to get one this time. And I want to be there to work with that person to help make government work for everybody. I've had the experience. I mean, I've done this for years now. And I've had the experience of campaigning. I've run House Democrats for about 5 years now. I actually worked on several campaigns with people in this room, Bernie Gallo's campaign and some others. And I have dedicated staff to that. I went around the state. I raised about $100,000 last year and put that money to work getting Democrats elected. We now have the largest contingent of Democrats in the House than we have had since, 1965. You're the historian.
El Grasso.
El Grasso. Okay. We have 114 people out of 151 in the House. That's not an accident. That's because some of us have been running campaigns for a long time. So I've got the experience. I really care about these things, and I have the know-how, and I really want to make this work for everybody. So I would be the kind of person, I think, I'd come out and talk to people. I would make sure I'd not only be at the picnic, but actually listen to people about what we're doing that works and doesn't work. I think that's kind of what I've been known for. And I think one thing that maybe some Democrats won't like so well, but it's one thing I'm kind of proud of, is that last year in Connecticut Magazine, I was not only listed, they took a poll, and I was listed as not only most outstanding legislator, but also legislator most respected by the other side of the aisle. Now, I know I'm talking to a partisan crowd here, but that is something that increasingly I think if we don't get back to some form of talking to each other, we are all doomed. And it's the biggest issue out there right now. So I hope I can get your support, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions, especially if they're not about the budget, because I mean, I'll entertain questions about the budget if you really want me to, but I prefer to talk about other things. So thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you.
what can I say?